So with this slide, I just want to give you an overview of some of our 3D cell-based assays that have been optimised for use in 3D. So we have our cell health assays, and we have our metabolism assays. And these assays, they can either be lytic, or they can be non-lytic cellular assays, or they can be a media sampling assay, or they can be a combination of lytic or media sampling assay, depending on which assay you're using and what protocol that you follow. But with all our cell-based assays, they can be used on a standard plate reader, as long as it's got the capabilities of reading luminescence and fluorescence. So for the next few slides, I just want to go into a bit more detail on some of these assays. So looking at our endpoint lytic assays, so these assays, they measure an enzyme or biomarker in the cell. So a good example of that, some of you probably use this assay, is cell titer glow 3D cell viability assay. And essentially that measures the amount of ATP in the cell, which is a good proxy for viability. So here you have your 3D culture in a well. You add in the assay reagent that lyses the cell. It releases ATP. That ATP is used in a luciferase-luciferin reaction to produce a luminescent signal. And that luminescent signal is proportional to the amount of viable cells you have in culture. Now, with these assays, you generate a data point per assay. Now, 3D cell titer glow has been used in the hub method. So this is a protocol that's been developed and published by Hans Cleaver's group. And he's used cell titer glow to assess the viability of these organoids in their drug screens. So moving on to the media sampling assay. So these assays are non-lytic. And they measure an enzyme or biomarker released from the cell into the media. And a good example of that is the LDH glow cytotoxicity assay. And that measures lactate dehydrogenase released from dying or dead cells. So with this assay, you have your 3D cells in culture. You remove 2 to 5 microliters of that media, and you add it into a separate well in a different plate. You then add in the assay reagent, and that reagent uses that LDH to produce luciferin, and in the presence of luciferase, you get a glow assay. And that glow is then proportional to the amount of cytotoxicity or dead or dying cells you have in your culture. Now, the nice thing about this assay, you generate a data point per sample. So this assay enables you to repeatedly sample from the media from that same sample well over time. And that means that you can monitor cytotoxicity from the same sample over time. As shown here in these doxorubicin dose-response curves in these HCT116 spheroids. Now, the nice thing about these assays as well, you can use them under flow or dynamic culture conditions, so organoid or MPS systems. So moving on to our live cell non-lytic assays. So these allow you to continually measure an enzyme or biomarker in the same sample well over time. So a good example of this is the real-time glow MT cell viability assay. And with this assay, it measures the reducing potential of the cell, which is a metabolic marker for viability. So here you have your 3D spheroid organoids in culture. You add in that assay reagent, and in this case, that assay reagent has a pro-substrate, which is cell permeable. So that pro-substrate, it diffuses into the cell, it's then reduced down, then it diffuses out of the cell as a substrate for nanoluciferase. It binds to the nanoluciferase and you get a glow. And because these two substrates, the pro-substrate and the nanoluciferase, is in excess in the media, it means that you can monitor cell viability over time. So with these, you generate a data point per read. So, as I've said, so it monitors cell viability continually in the same sample well over time, as shown here in this penobinostat dose response curve. So you can take it up to 3 days, you can take it beyond that if needed. So for further information on our assays, I would ask you to visit our website on the Promega 3D cell culture website. We also have open access documents, and we do have some chapters in this NIH assay guide manual. If you're interested, we also have a 3D cell culture interest group on LinkedIn, and we also have a metabolism interest group on LinkedIn too. So if you do have any questions, please come and see us at the Promega stand, where we'll be happy to answer any questions that you have. Thank you.